Hello everyone, my name is Hasty Swampert, and I am back to show you my 26th Purity Forest clear. It's crazy that I'm not far from 30, and for this edition I ended up clearing it with Raichu. And Raichu is the second electric Pokemon to beat the dungeon, and is actually the first Pokemon that evolves by an evolution stone to beat the dungeon. And I will get into why that's significant in a little bit, but I do want to talk. I think I'll start with items. So, believe it or not, I did this without X-ray specs. What I did find was on floor 2 of the dungeon, there was a Kecleon shop that was selling a Pass Scarf, a Warp Scarf, and TM Dig. All those three items I had to get, so I ended up robbing the place, and it was a little bit annoying to get to the stairs, but I eventually warped right on top of the stairs by pure luck, and I was able to just go into the menu, hit ground, and just move on to the next floor without the Kecleons having a chance of hitting me. But I did have to do some Pass Scarf shenanigans for a little bit against them, but I did get the items, which was good. And there were a lot of max elixirs this dungeon. I never really had an issue with PP, which was cool. Food was not a huge issue either, but there were a few instances where I was a little worried that there wasn't any food, but I think that was right at the beginning. But I did find food eventually, so that's good. Gravel rocks were good too. And I had a couple cleanse orbs in case anything valuable got sticky, which that did happen, but I was able to have a cleanse orb on hand to remedy the issue. So that's cool. But I'll get into moves right now. So I might as well just talk about why it's significant that a Pokemon that evolved by a stone 1 beat the dungeon, this being the first. And that's because Pokemon that typically evolve from a stone do not learn any moves from level up, which means the moveset you start out with at floor 1 is pretty much what you get unless you're able to find TMs for specific moves, which I was able to do, as you can tell right here, because Attract I got early on. Dig I mentioned I ended up getting on the second floor by stealing the shop, and this really dropped in power by I think around the second half. It really dropped in power, which was a big deal. And then once Thunder Shock didn't do much damage, I got rid of that and gave it rest, which did help. And then Frustration I actually did not get until floor 74, which was really late. But if I didn't have that, I think this clear would have been much more difficult, so the timing of that TM appearing was pretty solid. Now I will go into leveling, and it is not a good leveler. It's a pretty mediocre leveler, because starting at around, I'm trying to think of the math, I'm sorry. Once you hit level 11, the Pokemon is going to ask for 10,000 experience. And to get to level 10, you need around 9,600 something experience, which is already a lot. And then you'll need around 5,000 after you hit level 10, and then it's going to start asking for 10,000. I looked at this, how much experience this thing needs by level 30, and to hit level 30 with this, you need over 300,000, which I knew, man, this thing's going to be a disaster to level up. Well, it was actually easy for the first few levels, because it starts off asking for 100, then 150, and then I think 200. So the first few levels, it's easy, but by I think around 7 or 8, it will ask for 3,000, which is a lot. So do keep that in mind. Per level, though, it had some pretty nice stat growths because your hit points go up by 4 per level, and for the most part, your offenses and defenses go up by 2. Though, like, I think for 2 levels or so, defenses only went up by 1, but you will gain all your stats per level. I think the last thing I want to just touch upon besides static, which helped a little bit, but I do want to touch upon electric types in general for this dungeon. And there may be folks who may not agree with me on this, and that's okay. But part of me is convinced that electric type Pokemon are the worst type for this dungeon. And I think it's mainly because if you don't have any other coverage for floors 30-ish and 40 and whenever there's lightning rods, so like with Manectric, Rhyhorn, Rhydon, it's an uphill battle for you. And I remember this because there was a time before I got my first ever Purity Forest clear where I tried to do Pichu as my first clear. And this was before I decided to do it with every Pokemon. This was the time where I was like, I just want to do it this dungeon this one time and I'm never going back in it, but that never happened. But I knew when I hit like floor 30 something with Pichu, I dreaded it because it's just all the lightning rod Pokemon in the dungeon really just made it more difficult for me to get through. And I usually lost at that point. This was before I even hit floor 50, when I wasn't so good at this. But I think I covered just about everything, because Raichu's kind of okay. Level 12 isn't really a high level, but it had pretty good bulk. Magcargo didn't do much to it, but I think once you hit this part of the dungeon, it's just really scary for it. I never really got an idea of how much damage the Pokemon do to you because I just had Pass Scarf, so I think that's all I have to say. But thank you very much for watching. If you like it, leave a like, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next time.